This hadn't been a routine case. And to find the answer, I've had to put a lot of little pieces together.
Find your seats. I'd like to call the City Council regular meeting to order on Tuesday, October 7th, 2014. At this time, we'd like to invite Paul Ellis forward. Paul is the Maricopa Police Department chaplain, and he's going to give our invocation, after which we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Richard Hall.
Would you stand with me? I recognize we have all different faiths represented here, and as I pray in my discipline, I encourage you to pray along with me in accordance with your tradition. Bow with me in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we gather here tonight with thankful hearts for your great love, for your provision, and for your care over us. On this night, we do not forget to thank you for the freedom we enjoy in this country and for those who have paid such a great price for that freedom. We are thankful for those you have placed in leadership over our city, our mayor, our city council, and we pray your hand of blessing that it would be upon them and that you would grant them wisdom and vision in the decisions that they make on a daily basis. We thank you for Maricopa, and we pray for the welfare of our city and the safety and well-being of our citizens. For those who find themselves in places of need tonight, may they look to you for answers and strength, and may we be mindful of our neighbors and reach out in need and care and compassion to them. We pray for those who serve our community so faithfully, our first responders, our volunteers, our civil servants. We thank you for their service and pray for their continued safety and watch over our city. Be with us this evening as we reflect on the past, the present, and the future of Maricopa, and grant us all your peace. For all of these things, we say thank you. Amen.
Amen.
Everybody facing the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you, Mr. Hall, and thank you, Chaplain Ellis. Appreciate your participation. At this time, we will move to the roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Chapados? Here. Councilmember Frank?
Here.
Councilwoman Dusty? Here. Councilmember Kimball?
Here.
Vice Mayor Farrell? Here. Mayor Price?
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we have a
Great, thank you. At this time, we have two proclamations. We'll move to item 3.1 and 3.2. We have two proclamations. I'll come down there, and we'll get these started. The first proclamation is about Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I know we always have representatives here that can assist us with that, and I'd always like to give this proclamation to somebody. So I know Tori's in the audience. Tori, would you come on up here? And Mary Wachowski, are you still here? Come on up, Mary. And Chief Stahl, would you come up? That would be a great start. Got our purple on. Great job. So, wanted to read this to you all. It says, whereas all Arizonans are affected by domestic violence, directly or indirectly, with more than 1 million victims seeking medical assistance for injuries caused by battering, and whereas 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men aged 18 or older in the United States have been the victims of severe physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime, and whereas an estimated 30 to 60% of the families where either domestic violence or child maltreatment is identified, it is likely that both forms of abuse exist. Studies show that for victims who experience severe forms of domestic violence, their children are also in danger of suffering serious physical harm. And whereas the problem of domestic violence is not confined to any group or groups of people, but across all economic, racial, affectional preference, and societal barriers, and whereas violence against women and children continues to become more prevalent as a social problem due to the imbalance of power due to gender and age, and whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity due to systemic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and or abuse. whereas battered women have been in the forefront in the efforts to bring peace and equality to the home, and whereas this community recognizes the vital importance of increasing the general public's awareness and support of agencies providing services to domestic violence victims and perpetrators. Whereas we hold forth a vision of a community free from domestic violence, now therefore, I, Christian Price, Mayor of the City of Maricopa, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2014 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the City of Maricopa. And our second award, or proclamation I should say, is about an event that's taking place with our Maricopa Chamber of Commerce. I know that they have rolled something out in this past year called the Chamber for Good, and I'll let them explain a little bit about that, but I know that Patty asked for this, and if Patty, you'd come on up today along with Marla from the Chamber of Commerce, that would be great. We got Sue and Patty and Marla, wonderful. Thank you.
I'll be talking about it.
Okay, great. Whereas for the month of October 2014, the Maricopa Chamber of Commerce will recognize and support the efforts of our local nonprofit organizations as a focus of the Chamber's events. Whereas we believe that the buying local strengthens local economies, giving local strengthens communities, and whereas the Chamber for Good is about a donate local, especially for those small organizations that are fueled by the zeal and dedication of a few individuals who see a local need to do their best and fill it. Whereas the key to the Chamber for Good is that it leverages the strength and character of our Maricopa Chamber of Commerce to serve as the conduit connecting local donors to local charities serving local needs. And whereas the Maricopa Chamber of Commerce encourages all our citizens, nonprofit organizations, and businesses to take an active role in engaging in activities that promote and support our local charities and causes, now therefore I, Christian Price, the Mayor of the City of Maricopa, do hereby proclaim October 2014 as the Chamber for Good month in the City of Maricopa, and urge my fellow citizens to recognize the crucial role that our local nonprofit organizations have in our community and the role that they play, and hopefully that we will support them. Thank you. Oh, appreciate it. You're done. You can go now. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, that concludes our proclamations and awards at this time. That'll take us into item 4, which is the report from the mayor. We have two special presentations at this time in the report from the mayor. The first one I will turn over time to Councilwoman Gussie, after which she'll be followed by Councilmember Kimball.
Every year, Americans observe National Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th to October 15th by celebrating the histories, cultures, and contributions of American citizens whose ancestors came from Mexico, Spain, the Caribbean, Central, and South America. I had an opportunity to attend the State of the Americas dinner, and the guest speakers were former President of Mexico, Presidente Fox, and former President of Costa Rica, which were Laura Chinchilla Miranda. Try saying that a couple of times. Both presidents spoke about their experience in the U.S., and they both graduated from American universities. They also both recognized the contributions of Latinos in the U.S. In a room full of politicians and predominantly English-speaking only audience, Ms. Chinchilla Miranda delivered all her opening remarks in Spanish, and if you allow me for just a second. Estamos celebrando el mes de la herencia hispana y celebramos la historia, la cultura y reconocemos las contribuciones de nuestra presencia en este país y en la ciudad de Maricopa. Los latinos hemos sacrificado mucho y somos la fundación de muchos negocios en este país. Nos estamos preparando para seguir adelante y muy pronto no seremos la minoría. También estamos cambiando la política en este país. El 71% del voto latino eligió al presidente Obama. Los latinos somos demócratas, republicanos, independientes y tenemos un poder con nuestro voto. Por favor, voten. Si no pueden votar, asegúrense que sus hijos y sus vecinos voten. Me da mucho gusto de ser la primera y la única latina en este council y espero no ser la última. Gracias. Now, Hispanics make up 17% of the U.S. population, and it's projected that Hispanics will be at 31% by 2016. The past 20 years have witnessed dramatic increases in percentages for Latinos in active duty enlisted personnel. As of September 2006, Hispanic men accounted for 11% of enlisted men, and Hispanic women were 12% of enlisted women. So just for all our vets in the room, I directed those comments to you all. And my last comment was regarding the Veteran Town Hall. The VA sent representatives out here, and I just wanted to publicly thank the VA for sending those representatives, and I received nothing but great remarks from the majority of the people that were here. Some vets were stating that they received services in a matter of 8 to 10 minutes that they were waiting years to receive. So I want to thank all of you who participated, and this couldn't have happened if it weren't for all the veteran groups, because you are the one who put this together. Thank you once again.
Councilmember Kimball.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, I have a certificate of partnership for the Blue Star Moms for the Boxes for the Brave program. So I would like the Blue Star Moms to come to the podium and you accompany me down there. The City of Maricopa has resolved to support members of the armed forces. As part of this effort, I, Councilmember Bridger Kimball, initiated the Boxes for the Brave program. In support of this program, I, Councilmember Kimball, have initiated a partnership with the Maricopa Blue Star Moms, knowing that by working together, we enhance our effectiveness in supporting Maricopa's active duty members of the military on deployment. Be it hereby known that Maricopa City Council member, myself, Bridger Kimball, recognizes the Blue Star Mothers as a strategic partner in the City of Maricopa's efforts to support members of the armed forces on this 7th day of October, 2014. If I can have Paul come up here and please explain the Boxes for the Brave program. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So Councilman Kimball has graciously partnered with the Blue Star Moms, who are mothers of children serving overseas, very involved. They send many of these. And so the partnership is that Boxes for the Braves is something that Councilman Kimball started up earlier this year. And in this partnership, I think we're expanding the capacity to deliver good quality stuff for these guys and gals overseas. Okay, Councilman Kimball has been gracious enough to dedicate, if you participate in the Boxes for the Brave, through his contingency money, pay for the shipping for the first 50 boxes. I think we've shipped about a dozen, so we have many left to do. So if you want to participate in the Boxes for the Braves, we have a website post going up, I think 7:30, and it'll have updated instructions. And the combination is doing this, and if you run into a snag, because we have learned that there are snags, the Blue Star Moms are available in the instructions, in the material, to give you a little help, a lot of help, or just, walk you through the process. So it's a combination of the city supporting this and Blue Star Moms helping you walk through the process. Just so you know, a couple tips so we don't avoid mistakes. The boxes that we are paying for are these large flat rate boxes you can get at Maricopa Post Office. Go in there, get it, fill it up, then bring it back and we'll get it taken care of. If you participate that way, you have to bring it to City Hall unsealed, so we can take a look at it, help you fill out the manifesto, or bring it to Blue Star Moms unsealed so they can help you fill it. And we will add a little thank you card into the box with anything else. It's that simple. The goal is to send as many boxes as possible with as many cool stuff, food, whatever to soldiers who are out there away from home. And, Tracy told me, if you want to get it to there by Christmas, you better get it shipped by October 31st. So, did I miss anything? We're good? Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you to the Blue Star Moms and to Councilwoman Gussie and also Councilmember Kimball for those updates. At this time, I want to give you a quick run through here. We had the opportunity to host the Lower Santa Cruz River Alliance here in this building with Representative Kirkpatrick, who is our representative in the U.S. Congress, and we were able to talk about the things that are taking place in Washington, D.C., as well as make known the events and the updates as to where we are in fixing the flooding potential issues with the Lower Santa Cruz, which runs right through the city of Maricopa. So it's a really big deal. It's something that we made a big headway on this year, and the fact that we were one of 9 new starts that took place at the federal government level. That just shows how important this project is, and so we want to keep the pressure on. Also had the opportunity, this is as much for the public as council, to speak about our 347 overpass project to a group called SMPS, which was a group of engineers and marketing professionals and developers from other cities around the state. So that was a good experience. And then also I was invited to speak at the Ak-Chin Chamber of Commerce about our partnerships that we have. And I really enjoyed that opportunity to learn a little bit more about the Native American culture, as well as kind of how working together can really solidify a lot of things moving forward. So I appreciate Ak-Chin and the Chamber for that invite. Also, Vice Mayor and I had the opportunity to go to ICSC, which is the International Conference of Shopping Centers. It may or may not sound like much to most of you, but it's held twice a year. It's the place to go and network with folks that are architects and developers and landholders and financiers and economic development teams, as well as retailers. And the purpose of that is to get the city of Maricopa's name out there. And so when you're talking about expanding, you're a Best Buy and you want to grow someplace, well, we want you coming to Maricopa. If you're a Applebee's or Home Depot or any of the other things that you can possibly imagine, that's what we do twice a year as we go to these large events. And our economic development team sets up appointments for us. And so it's really interesting. People often say, oh, you get to go to San Diego. How fun. The weather's so nice. And the Vice Mayor and I look at each other and say, what weather? We didn't see the outside of the conference center for 2 days. So we just go every 10 or 15, 20 minutes, meet new people, sell the story of Maricopa, and explain to them why it's so important they come here. So, every little bit helps. That's what networking and building foundations is about. And every year you kind of get a different story, but in the long run, what you hope to achieve is that by staying in front of people, it tips that tide so that when they are ready to pull that trigger, we're hopefully ready. We also had the opportunity to attend a groundbreaking this morning at Maricopa Station. As you know, that's been in all the newspapers lately. And it's right there behind the CVS, right on your way out of town before Rancho El Dorado. And that location is being developed by Vintage Partners. And Vintage is also has attracted several different entities along with the help of the city of Maricopa and others. And we're hoping to see a Starbucks and a Freddy's, Custard, as well as a Jersey Mike's and a Chipotle go in there, amongst others. I'm sorry? And the Vice Mayor brings up a really interesting point. I mean, those are all results that come from attending that ICSC conference. So it's not something, economic development is not something that takes place overnight, but is the result of long-term efforts that take place. So, and then finally, just wanted to make sure that you were all aware that the State of the City address is coming up here next week. It's next Thursday on the 16th. It'll be held here in this building starting at 6 p.m. And so we hope you'll all RSVP and come and attend. There is an RSVP because we're just trying to get a gauge on how many people would like to come and for food measurements. But if you'll RSVP by going to the city website, that would be wonderful. So with that concludes the mayor's report, and that'll take us on to the report from the city manager. Mayor Rose.
There are 2 items to report. Economic Development Director Micah Miranda will be reporting on the first item. I believe he is presenting the MAP participants, and that will be followed by Mary Wilkowski, who will introduce to you the victim advocate.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have some positive announcements for the MAP program, and actually Denise Earhart's going to walk us through the newest MAP Platinum members. So at that time, Denise.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. As you know, this evening I'm here to highlight 9 new certified platinum level maps. These individuals have committed to learning about the city, its resources, and economic development efforts. MAP was launched last fall as an opportunity to support the city's efforts and promote Maricopa as a dynamic place to do business. So these advocates have gained the proper tools to confidently talk about the city and economic development goals and the advantages of locating in the city of Maricopa. Participants work their way through the program by attending events that are informational sessions that have point values associated with them. So as they progress, they start at a silver status with 15 points, gold status with 20, and platinum status by earning 30 points. Meaning you have the ability to engage with the city and really learn our resources. So without further ado, I'd like to call up in alphabetical order our newly certified platinum level maps. They will each receive a certificate of recognition and the official map pin, which is pretty exciting. If you look closely at the pin, it's designed with the Estrella Mountains, the 347, and Maricopa on the map, if you will. So I'd like to call up Leanne Clark. Councilmember Peggy Chapados. Deb Donchern. Lee Filis. Rachel Afal. Marla Lewis. Marla Lewis. Vincent Manfredi. Susie Miller. And Rebecca Mullis. Thank you. So please, a huge round of applause for the certified level maps. On Thursday of this week, we'll actually be hosting a map recognition luncheon, reviewing the year, highlighting our silver members, our gold members, as well as our platinum level members. We'll also learn about the 2015 program. And for anyone in the crowd that's interested in learning more about the Maricopa Advocate Program, please go to the city website under Economic Development to learn more. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I feel this is an exciting time for the Maricopa Police Department. I'm very passionate about social work, and I'm honored to be part of formalizing and developing their Victims Assistance Program. Tonight, I'd like to introduce Sarah Vonderheide, if she could please stand. She is a part-time victim advocate with the Maricopa Police Department as part of a grant award we received from the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology and has worked for the past 7 years in Illinois in a shelter for domestic violence and sexual assault survivors. She worked both as a counselor and a court advocate. She joined the Maricopa Police Department on August 18th, and I'm happy to say she is also a Maricopa resident.
Mayor, that concludes our report.
Great, thank you very much, appreciate it. That takes us on to the call to the public. I do have 2 speaker cards that we'll start with first from the call to the public, and after which it's open to anybody who would like to approach the podium. You'll be given 3 minutes. We encourage you to stick to that time frame, and the first one we'll take with Chad Chatterton, who would like to talk about Copa Kids Who Care. After which will be followed by George Sokol.
Hi, I'm Chad Chatterton. I'm a broker owner, Awatiki Realty, and had an idea that we'd like to promote good behavior and reward kids in the city. I put a flyer on everybody's desk. Marla's helping out with it. We've partnered up with the Chamber, of which I'm a member. And basically what we're asking people to do is fill out a nomination form for a kid that's done something special in the community, either for animals or people. The Chamber will pick a nominee every month, and we will give them $100. So I just thought I'd present it to the council. Anything you want to add? No?
Thank you, Chad. Appreciate it. George, you're up. And if I'm reading this correctly, it says basically discussing a memorial plaque for the USS Liberty at the Veterans Center. Is that correct?
Sure. Thank you very much for hearing me. You said you wanted our name out, the city of Maricopa. February 20th this year, the American Legion passed a resolution to investigate the USS Liberty. It passed with no, there's no dissent. It went to the state where it passed again. When this happened, it went viral on satellite radio. It went, it's been on some TV, and Post 133, Maricopa, Arizona, is right out there with it, along with the thanks for the people. Now we're putting we're moving a memorial to the to the Vet Center. I'd like to propose a memorial to the men on the USS Liberty. There's 2 of us out of the 20,000 men that were involved in this, that live here in town. John Nuss and myself. He was on the USS Saratoga. I was on the USS America. It would take a heck of a lot longer to explain it. If you'd like me to come down and meet with you, I've got some copies of the resolution, and you'll see in the resolution that it was that there was a war crimes report. I have the war crimes report, but my computer and my printer had an argument, so I didn't get enough of them printed. However, I'll give you some copies of that, and if you'd like, if I'm still here when the meeting's through, you can come up and talk to me. I'd be more than happy to explain this. This is the most decorated ship in the United States Navy, and she deserves the recognition. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George. Appreciate it. Patty?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to represent the Community Impact Committee of the Maricopa Chamber of Commerce, which I currently serve as the chairperson. First, I'd like to thank you for the proclamation for October being the Chamber for Good month. Chamber of Good began a year ago, and the purpose behind it was to connect our local nonprofits with our community in order to support them. We're still signing up nonprofits, and we'd like to have more of them signed up, and again, more citizen input and community support. It is extremely important to get all of our nonprofits on here. They don't have to be members of the chamber, they just have to be local 501c3 nonprofits. Right now, for the month of October, the Chamber is also focusing all their activities on the Chamber for Good and the nonprofit members. Our monthly breakfast this Thursday will feature approximately 10 nonprofits with speakers and informational tables. We are also asking participants to bring a non-perishable food item that we will donate to FOR Maricopa Food Bank. Our monthly mixer is going to be held on Tuesday, October 28th at the Copper Sky Dog Park. We're going to allow our nonprofit members to set up tables to showcase their organization and causes, and we're asking participants not only to bring their four-legged friends, but an item to support our local pet rescue. The Chamber is also participating in the first Maricopa Music Festival in October, and keeping with our theme for Chamber for Good, we will have a donation jar to benefit our Against Abuse shelter, and we will be distributing temporary tattoos that say "Stop the Bullying." We are also proud to announce that as of October 1st, the Chamber office will now be an official drop-off site for non-perishable food items for Maricopa FOR. I encourage everyone here tonight and those watching to be part of the Chamber for Good. Sign up is really easy. maricopagives.com. So y'all write that down? maricopagives.com. Go in and sign up. On a weekly basis, you'll get an email with our local nonprofit events and their needs, as well as if you have something that you want to donate, time or goods, you have the opportunity to connect directly to our local nonprofits. Thank you for your time and your support.
Thank you, Patty. Tori.
Mayor Price, Vice Mayor Farrell, council members, Tori Anderson. I'm here on behalf of Against Abuse Incorporated, and I want to, a couple things, I'll try not to get emotional. Our shelter is complete, and it's been a long road, it's been 10 years, but what's been nice about it, it's given us time to educate our community and to make it, be able to take domestic violence out of the closet, to be able to talk about it, and help our victims get the assistance and the help that they need. And the abuser is the one that we want to leave our city. So it's been nice that our community has been able to embrace that and to support our community. So I want to take this opportunity. I know that there are several people in the audience who have helped over the last 10 years, not only furnish the shelter that as it stands right now. We have several groups that have adopted rooms. They helped with the move-in. I've got committee members here who have helped raise the funds, and I just want them to all to stand, please, so that everyone can see actually how many people in this audience have been a part of this project. So thank you, all of you, from the bottom of my heart, Chamber, City, for supporting us all these years. Now that we've got the building built, we have to raise funds for operating expenses. So I'm not going away, I'm only going to get worse. So, a couple things coming up. On October 15th, we are very excited to be able to partner with the Maricopa Police Department. And on the 15th at Copper Sky Complex on the Great Lawn, we will be doing a Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event. And everybody is invited. Bring your dogs, bring your strollers, kids, even in the strollers. Everybody, sports teams, if there's football teams, soccer teams, come on out, wear purple, and show your support for those who have actually accomplished and have risen above the domestic violence. The other thing that we're going to do is, since January to present, our Maricopa Police Department has responded to over 300 domestic violence calls. That's more than one a day. So in remembrance of that, in support of our police department and our victims, we are going to do a remembrance garden. And so we've got 300 ribbons, which we're going to have everybody who's there tie on the trees in our rock garden with some statistics. So we really want you to come and be a part of this and let our community know that we're in this together. And the city of Maricopa will not stand for domestic violence or bullying, which is kind of the same thing. So I want to talk about that. The next fundraiser we have is October 19th. We have the Taste of Casa Grande. And I am selling tickets. So I just wanted to thank you very much. Appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Tori? Can you tell us the time on the walk?
6:30 to 7:30.
6:30 to 7:30. Perfect.
Yeah. And we'll be walking around the lake. PM. Really, Edward? You're talking to me. I mean, you've known me a long time.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, fellow council members. I'm here tonight to announce the third Maricopa New Resident Reception. We'll be here on Saturday, October 18th from 8 to 10 a.m. right here in council chambers. Any new residents that we have in Maricopa or anybody that's lived here for a while is welcome to come hear the presentation and get lots of good information and meet a lot of wonderful people. So October 18th, 8 to 10 right here in the council chambers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Richard.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm the commander of the Veterans of Foreign Wars here in Maricopa. Chris, would you join me? Chris Flores is the commander of the American Legion here in Maricopa. Often when we come to see anyone here on the council, elsewhere, city manager, whatever, we're always begging for things. This time we are not. And this is just a thank you to everyone, and specifically to certain members that belong to the city of Maricopa that normally do not get recognized. Would Patty Lacombe come forward? Daniel Leonard? Dan, are you here? John Bemis? What has happened in the last few years, the city of Maricopa has finally recognized the veterans, and we are truly appreciative. Especially across the board, you've created a culture that filters down to the worker bees. In this particular case, Patty, along with her husband, Roy, were going along, and they went by the old city hall, which had a flagpole. This sparked an idea, and they started the ball rolling. Roy got after Patty. Patty, who works for the city, brought it forward. And with that, the council, everyone else listened and made it possible, and they transported it from the old city hall to the Maricopa Veterans Center and totally erected it at no cost to the veterans. They did it, rearranged the budgets, what have you. It was no easy task. But then the people involved in getting it done, specifically Dan Leonard here, who's the maintenance coordinator of the Public Works Division here in the center, along with John, along with 3 other gentlemen. They came about and got it done in 114-degree weather. And right now, if you go by the Maricopa Veterans Center, it is outstanding. So with that, Mrs. Lacombe, for your efforts in arranging with the city of Maricopa the donation of the new flagpole to the Maricopa Veterans Center. Your professionalism, attitude, and overall effort is appreciated by the local veterans community, Veterans of Foreign Wars, and the American Legion. Thank you. Dan, for the coordination and scheduling and the placement of the new flagpole donated to the Veterans Center. Your professionalism, attitude, and overall effort is appreciated by the local veterans community and the Veterans Foreign Wars and the American Legion. Thank you very much. The certificate reads the same. Thank you very much. Now, just two quick ones. One, the gentleman belongs to me. After the flagpole was moved, it had to be completely refurbished. 5:30 in the morning, 110-degree weather, whatever, he was there. And he had just come off a hip replacement. He made the effort. He was out there. He did the job. So, Clint, Goalie, would you please come forward? Thank you so very much. Hey, take a picture. Last but not least, Mr. Mayor. This is certificate appreciation to the city of Maricopa. The efforts of the mayor's office, the members of the city council, in providing logistical support in the moving and erecting of the flagpole of the Maricopa Veterans Center were invaluable. Your efforts noticeably enhanced the visibility of the home of the veteran service organizations and is entirely gratefully appreciated by all. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Veterans, would you rise? Present arms. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to make a quick announcement. The Families First Community Development Corporation has the after-school program at Maricopa High School on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays from 2:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. And I just wanted to place a special emphasis on the Tuesday afternoons for the seniors in Maricopa for the college preparatory program. College applications are going to start being due, so if anyone in the city has any college students who need assistance preparing for college, we want to make sure that they do not miss any deadlines. So if you could please direct them to the high school, they can see Dean Brian Ewing, and then we can go ahead, and if they need special arrangements where they can't make the after-school program, we can set up individual appointments because we want to make sure that our students are educated, which prepares us for those businesses coming in for our educated workforce. So please spread the word. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it. Anyone else on the call of the public? Yes, Gail.
Mayor Price and Council and Mr. Rose. I just came up just to say thank you to the community in general. On September 27th, Connie Jackson and myself, and we had 25 volunteers, and we had a very good day of voter registration. We were trying to get more people involved and registered to vote for the upcoming election. And in spite of the rain, it didn't mess up our spirit. So I want to say thank you to everyone that came out and to the 20-something volunteers that helped. And I especially wanted to thank the businesses that let us sit there for the day. We had 6 businesses in all. So I want to give a shout out to Hey Maricopa, Tacos and More, C&C, Barbershop, Honeycut Coffee, Sports and Cuts, and Cilantros. And I wanted to remind everyone in here to say thank you again and to shop local. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, if there's no one else called to the public, thank you very much for your participation this evening. That'll take us to item 7.1 and 7.2. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please? Second. I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Takes us to public hearings. We have a public hearing on 8.1, which is PH 14-10. The mayor and city council shall hear public comment on conditional use permit, CUP case number 14-02, Copper Sky Park. It's the above-ground fuel tank. Is there anybody that wish to speak on this item and this item only? You may approach the podium. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing at this time, and we'll move on. Thank you. That takes us to the consent agenda. Item 9.1 through 9.11. Can I have a motion to approve, please? Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the items? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to item 10.1. We do have a speaker card on the issue, and that is for Eric Latch. Eric, would you like to speak prior? Go ahead and come on up previous, and then we'll have a presentation by staff.
Thank you for this time, Mr. Mayor, council members. I wanted to bring up the point of possibly repurposing the La Roca nightclub building on a temporary basis. Currently, because we're not in a position yet with funding and moving forward on the projects like the 347 overpass or Honeycutt Road expansion. My suggestion would be to repurpose it as an American Legion meeting hall. And here's the problem that I see. It's a vacant property that the city, it's an eyesore for the city, and it does honestly stand in the way of progress. I'm firmly aware of that. And the other problem is the American Legion itself could use its own home. Right now, the Veterans Center is shared by both the VFW and the American Legion, and it has limitations, without a doubt. The solution that I'm offering is repurposing the nightclub, leasing it to the American Legion on a short to possible long-term basis, depending on where the funding falls into place. Because honestly, I don't know how soon, and I don't want to come across and say I know all these answers. You guys do better than I do. But the opportunity to repurpose that into a meeting hall, even if it didn't go to the Legion, repurposing that, this city is struggling for meeting places. We don't have enough meeting places for nonprofits to meet. The reason I suggest the American Legion is they're a nonprofit organization that can step in and make a difference right away with this building. I did give you guys all a copy of this letter, and I just want to run down some of the pros and cons of this. The pros would be there are multiple American Legion programs that can use the property. That includes the American Legion men and women themselves. That includes the Ladies Auxiliary. That includes programs like Alika and the Boys State. That includes Legion Baseball. ALR. There's a variety of programs right now that they're fighting for time and use of the Veterans Center. And I realize there's right now we could say, yeah, we can save the taxpayers $45,000 right now. It's, the property itself will be maintained and updated. That's one of the things that the Legion has talked about. It can become a resource center for veterans opportunities. It can be used to bring VA reps in here on a more regular basis to work with our vets one-on-one, even for things like job training skills. It can be an additional crisis center. I mean, the Veterans Center does a wonderful job right now, but there are times where they can be overwhelmed too. So having additional resources is never a bad thing. The property could be used for other nonprofit meetings as well. I mean, I know as director of For Our City, the battles we have in being able to hold a meeting at times, and some of the things we've encountered are if we have a scheduled meeting time with, say, using Station 575, their training sessions trump our meetings. So, and and for good reason. I mean, because we want the best trained men and women, without a doubt. Some of the cons, of course, would be if the property is repurposed, it could slow down the progress of the 347 overpass or widening of Honeycutt Road, without a doubt. Liability to the property, to the city of Maricopa if it were used in I'll use the term cantina. If it's used in that way, I know there's a big liability aspect there that I don't personally know about, so this is why I'm throwing these things out there. Parking issues in general, I will say that I've looked at some different things, and I reached out to a few people that could give me insight on the parking issues and stuff from the standpoint of a variety of people, and you know, and there again, that's something that would need to be considered, because of course right there you can't make a left turn onto 347, and you would never want anybody trying to pull out of the front of that building onto 347 creating havoc. Also the cost to update the property and bring it up to code. Currently I don't know what the condition of that building is, so I don't know without going in there and doing some extensive walkthroughs and talking with code enforcement and talking with our fire department and what it would cost to update that. What I am suggesting at this point, to consider at least putting this vote on hold for at least 30 to 45 days so that it can be delved into a little further, so that you know, we can do our homework on it as well, and maybe there's an opportunity there that is unseen. And I will say I did have a chance to talk with Mayor Price earlier today, and he very clearly stated a lot of these issues to me and what the city would be dealing with. And I appreciate that, you know, you taking the time to explain those to me. With that being said, I would ask, I know you can't make a decision tonight on if you were going to do something like this, but I would ask you to consider pushing this back for 30 to 45 days so that it can be researched a little bit further and see where it falls into place.
I think you've raised a lot of good questions, Eric, and I think to that end, I think we better hear from staff to see if any of those questions are answered, and it may shed light on this so that council can ask additional questions. And you know, please stick around in the audience. Don't go anywhere as we're in the middle of this discussion. So let's call Bill Fay up here. He's going to present on. He's the Director of Public Works, and I think that maybe we can get some of those questions answered, and that'll facilitate a conversation. So Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate it.
Through the mayor, members of council, I was going to focus on how the procurement occurred, but it doesn't seem like that's really the issue tonight. So I will focus instead on an issue that I only became aware of, so I don't have detailed numbers, and that is the idea of repurposing La Roca. Right now, the building's vacant. A rule of thumb that we use in the industry, or at least that I used in my previous, in fact, it was a policy in my previous job, vacant buildings are a health hazard to the city. They attract homeless, meth, that kind of stuff. So once they get vacated, my old rule was get them down within 3 days. Now that doesn't mean that you can't repurpose a building. It does mean that a vacant building is a dangerous issue. I personally visit it almost every day on the way into work. Dan Leonard, our facilities director, opens it up once a week. Chief Stahl has the police going by somewhat regularly. We have not had any major incidents. We've had some break-ins. As far as I can tell, it's just teenagers, and we've had some fires, but not like you know, big fire. I think it's little campfires and people sitting around drinking beer inside. So it's not that big a deal yet. It still is a danger. I would encourage you to either repurpose this building or demolish it, but let's not sit on the fence. To do so is to invite some trouble. The building is currently not habitable. The inside is completely gutted. It needs a new roof. It's not hooked up to utilities, except maybe gas. The gas is turned off, but the meter hasn't been pulled. So water and electricity are already, the meters are pulled, the wires are pulled out, everything like that. A preliminary asbestos survey looks okay, but we're going to have to do a more thorough one, and asbestos that is found is going to have to be abated. That'll have to happen whether we repurpose the building or not. The interior is going to need a full remodel. It's been completely gutted, and the bathrooms, like down to the sewer pipes and everything. Landscaping, the wall on the south side will need to be redone. Asbestos, about half of what we're talking about spending on the demolition is going to need to be done anyway, particularly the trailer in back. Up until around June, there were some people living in that trailer. I know that there were some business concerns about that, but from an engineering standpoint, they were residents. They kept homeless people away. They were fine. Once they got evicted, that was when we started getting anxious about getting the building demolished relatively quickly. If we repurpose the building, the trailer and everything in back is still going to have to be demolished and removed. The site will need to be either paved or the parking redone. By city code, it has to take its, I don't think we have to do a half-street improvement because the half-street improvement is going to come with the 347 project, but we will have to take our on-site drainage that I don't think it does currently. And then eventually, I think the Veterans Group has already acknowledged it, eventually we will have to demolish it when it comes time to. A very rough swag, I think we're looking at an investment of about $100,000, $150,000, but please don't hold me to that. I think it's, and we could reduce that with self-help if groups want to they want to pitch in and do. Obviously you can't self-help asbestos abatement and utilities hookup, but you can drywall and a new roof, some of that stuff you could do. Additionally, the building is currently not hooked up to sewage for commercial use, and Maricopa Domestic Water doesn't provide that. We can't provide a commercial permit to a building that's hooked up, a new building or a new hookup. And I don't know how we would get around that. There might be a solution, but I don't know. It's not in Global Water's service area. I don't know if you can hook up sewage outside of a service area because it's very close. There's actually sewage lines in the adjacent road. It's just in a different service area. So I'm not sure how that would work. And finally, we actually did do this is a point that's more of a policy point that I was hoping if we were going to just talk about the procurement, I wouldn't have to address it. I'm not sure what the implications of this are. If we did a taking because, so we actually eminent domain and took this building. We condemned it, took it, and then there was a negotiation and a mediation that actually began down the path of litigation of paying for the property because it was being condemned. I don't know what the implications are of repurposing it after we've condemned it. I know there's complications and ripples to that are far beyond.
That's what worries me. Legal, can you address that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and I agree with Bill. I haven't looked at that. As I recall, we took it for a single purpose, which was the roadway, and that was the intent of expanding the roadway and possibly the overpass. I can check with our outside counsel who assisted us in the condemnation, but I know as we were going through the process, because things were starting to get delayed a little bit with the overpass, one of the questions he came back a couple times is, will we go forward with that, and how quickly will we go? So I think that could be an issue.
Now, that said, if the council, sorry, I'm getting closer and further away. If the council chooses to table this, I wouldn't recommend it from the health and safety perspective, but if the council chooses to, I'd be more than happy to meet the veterans groups or any other groups you want out there on site to open it up and, I don't know, let them take a tour around and see what's there and make an estimate of what they could do with it or not do with it. That said, again, I do have to caution the council. That means we've got the building sitting for another month, during which time it will. So far, it doesn't look like we have any serious crime problem coming out of there. It looks like we just got a couple teenagers now and again. And I noticed that the milk crates, there was a lot of milk crates. We called the dairies; they didn't come get them. But over time, they've slowly been disappearing. I think it's kind of become a surrogate furniture store for someone. And that's all probably not that big a deal. So in the grand scheme of things, other than the slight, I guess I shouldn't minimize it, there is a health and safety concern. Other than that, in terms of the 347 project for which this was taken, the demolition of this project is not on the critical path. If you were to table it again for another month, it wouldn't affect 347. It would cause a bit of a health and safety. Chief Stahl is I don't need to look. I know what his look looks like right now. He's looking at my back. Does he have his gun out? Okay, if he doesn't, we're okay. We could get by on that. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, Vice Mayor Farrell, you had a question.
I have a quick question for Mr. Lass with the American Legion. Let's just hypothetically say that we were able to find $150,000 and refurbish this building, and we were able to get through the condemnation issues that need to be answered by legal, and we were able to open this building. The liability issue within a cantina where you serve alcohol in a premises is pricey. And I know you mentioned that in your presentation. Who would you expect to pay that liability for this establishment? Are the American Legion people going to step up and pay this liability insurance?
At this point,
Eric, come all the way up to the microphone, please.
my apologies. At this point, my assumption would be that it would be the Legion that should, because they want the building, if they're going to use it for that purpose, it should always fall on that category. It shouldn't fall on the city to cover that liability. That would be the way that I would see it. I do have a meeting later this week with them to discuss further with where things are going, and that's the way I would pursue it. And I do realize that to have that type of liability is scary. I don't want to jump off and say, oh yes, they're going to do it, or it should be the city. But that's why I asked if there was just, if we could, with 30 to 45 days, cause that much of an issue at this point to dig into this a little further. We could come back by the next council session, actually, and probably have some solid answers for you and some more solid numbers, if that's reasonable.
And one more question. When you talk about establishments that serve alcohol, you have to deal with the State Department of Liquor License and Control, and you have to purchase a liquor license for the establishment. A liquor license could cost anywhere from a few $1,000s if you just want to serve beer or wine, or they could get up to $80,000, $90,000 if you want to serve all the hard alcohol that's involved. Who would you expect to pay the expense for that liquor license?
Again, I would think it falls on, if this is a Legion project and they want this to happen, I would think it goes there. My suggestion early on in this, when this conversation came up over the last few days, was not to jump into the idea of having a cantina or a liquor license at this point for the sole purpose of there is headquarters bar right across the street, and if nothing else, serve coffee, and they can come from over there and hang out for an hour or two, and I hate to use the word sober up, but essentially, that's a terminology. And but I think going in, if we tackle this as, we want to make it a cantina right away, then it probably creates too many issues to get this thing handled. If we go in there with the idea to keep it as a meeting hall, and maybe down the road, depending on how the overpass works out or how the widening of Honeycutt affects this, then the possibility is there down the road. But I personally don't think it should be that the Legion should consider jumping into it right away in that aspect. I think it should stay as a meeting hall, and if you serve coffee and you serve soda, there's nothing but a City of Maricopa license needed for the basics on that, and health code to come in and verify things. So, and I think that would be a much better aspect for them than jumping it into a cantina right away. That would be my suggestion. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, Councilmember Franks.
Bill, could you remind us again what the tentative schedules are for Honeycutt Road and
347. When is it imminent that this be torn down?
Right now, we have $18.8 million of federal funding. The ADOT tentative schedule is to have a designer for Phase 2, which is roughly the Honeycutt Road portion, and Phase 3, which is this La Roca happens to sit right on the corner of Phase 2 and Phase 3. They hope to have a designer on board May 1st. I would estimate about under a year to hit 30% with ADOT. And at 30% design, they can begin acquiring they can begin acquiring the properties that they need, which would include some of the properties that are potentially adjacent to La Roca. I would say that the demolition of this project reaches the critical path of the 347 project schedule in 3 years, maybe. That schedule hasn't been developed, so I'm kind of guessing outwards, but we've got a few years. If we demolish, this project is well off the critical path right now. And could I emphasize through the mayor, the $150,000 number, that was kind of a broad swag that I kind of threw together. In the course of another week, I could get order of magnitude within 20% type good numbers that we could rely on by bringing in a JOC. In fact, probably the same JOC contractor and having him kind of gin up some good numbers for us. This was kind of some very broad, me putting some just swag to it. So don't go looking for $150,000 just yet, Mr. Mayor.
Did you have another question? Go ahead.
Personally, I think you're a little low on your bid. Because, just to give the public a little idea and a little history on La Roca and all the existing businesses in the historical part of Maricopa. When we incorporated in 2003, all the existing businesses that were in Maricopa got what you call a grandfather clause. What that means is no matter what the code is in the new city of Maricopa, those existing businesses do not have to abide by the new code because they're grandfathered in. However, when that business or address ever sells and the transaction goes to another owner, that new owner is required through our code to bring that particular business up to the current City of Maricopa code. And we're talking, this La Roca that Mr. Fay has described to you, I'm not going to go into all the other details that he's already described, but one thing, for example, that he didn't describe is we would have to bring the Maricopa Fire Department in, and we'd have to put a totally new sprinkler system in, along with fire extinguishers. That alone is a $20,000 to $25,000 cost. So I think your projection on 150 is quite low, to be honest with you. So.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to rush into anything, and I'm apt to whatever council wants to decide here, but, there's a few points that I had the ability to talk with Eric earlier today on, and like I said, I am all for supporting our veterans and any of these groups, because, space is a commodity here in Maricopa. I mean, it literally is. It's supply and demand, and it just doesn't exist, and anything we can do to, get creative and make these things happen, I'm all for it. But I think the first thing that worries me the most in this particular instance is the condemnation thing. It's the thing we've talked least about, but if you initiate a process, and this is Dennis, and Dennis can go back and verify this, but if we initiated the process of condemnation, that means we told the existing owner that this is horrendous, and that it's terrible, and that it's a safety hazard, and that to that end it's going to do the greater good by allowing the overpass to go here, and you take it away from that owner, and then to turn around and say, oh, now we're going to use it for something else. I think I think we open ourselves open for an enormous lawsuit, and I can't in good conscience justify putting the taxpayers of 50,000 people at risk for that type of lawsuit, and that is the thing that concerns me probably first. Secondly is that, let's say we do give it 30 to 45 more days. Let's say we've just spent the last hour broadcasting this on television that nobody's there. And so, the police patrols happen to go by, but what happens if a murder takes place in the next 30 to 45 days? And now we're on the hook for that because we were killing time to find out, and we just didn't, and again, I'm not for rushing into things, but I am concerned, and when a place is dilapidated as bad as it is, it's a real hazard. And then finally, of course, is the cost that goes involved. Even if we do squeak out 3 years, which frankly, I hope you're 100% wrong there because you know me and how badly I want to see that overpass go through here in this city. And so I'm certainly doing everything I can along with the council is trying to make it move forward as fast as we possibly can, not controlling the federal highway or ADOT. But the reality there is that money that is not in the budget would come out of contingency to try and make happen. And on the estimate that the Vice Mayor was talking about, I mean, it really could soar. And I wonder, is there that trade-off there? So, I mean, when I'm weighing these pros and cons out in my mind here, what I'm seeing is a heck of a lot more cons and a ton of unknown liability that I'm not sure justifies the creativity side of it. And that's what scares the tar out of me. So again, I'm up for doing whatever council wants to do. I could be persuaded one way or the other, but like I said, and I really wish that that situation didn't exist in this particular case, but it does. And those are the facts and the reality of it. And with those unknowns, I don't know that I can justify putting the taxpayers at risk for those types of lawsuits that are imminent if we dilly-dally on something that frankly, we probably know the answer here. So my thoughts, my 2 cents. Yes, Councilwoman Gussie.
Just wanted to make sure I just made some points because I was in support. I continue to be in support. In the city of Eloy, and this is maybe the Vice Mayor will be able to help me, 308 North Main Street. I don't know how old that property is. That property in the city of Eloy was repurposed to the veterans groups, and the Home Depot Foundation came in and did all the repairs for it at no cost to the local city. The city of Eloy owned this particular property, and it was 1,800 square foot building. They repurposed it for the veterans groups, and I completely understand. I don't think we even discussed the veterans. We even discussed the whole legalities behind repurposing if it's already been condemned and so forth. But I just wanted to point out those facts, that we could actually find funding to make sure we get that.
Do you know when that was done by the Home Depot Foundation? I asked that question based on living in a post-recessionary world. I mean, is the foundation still around? Is that something you think that could be sought after?
This Eloy Center just opened up, if anyone out here could remind me. And the only thing is that, the only thing that we're asking is that you give us time. I mean, like you all said, we haven't even seen it. The majority of us haven't seen it, so we don't have no clue. And if it's at a point where, we can't even come up with the funding, we wouldn't even try. But we're just asking for the opportunity not to tear down an existing building and give us that opportunity to even investigate.
Thank you. Let's go to Vice Mayor Farrell and then back over to Councilmember Kimball.
Just had a quick question for the gentleman that had the floor and also Council Member Gussie. Have you found out through the research on your 308 North site in Eloy, was that property purchased by the city of Eloy, was it purchased due to condemnation or was it just purchased?
No, I haven't done that research, so no, I'm not aware.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone out there is aware. Was it due to,
Was the property that was purchased by the city of Eloy purchased due to condemnation or was it just purchased? Yeah, can you step up to the microphone?
As District Commander of Area 4, which includes all of Pinell County for the American Legion, I'm very familiar
to a certain extent with the Eloy project. And that project went forth with a request by a single individual who is a veterans advocate, nonprofit, and the city owned the building, and they repurposed it. Now, how they owned it, whether it was scheduled for demolition, that I don't know. But they did repurpose it virtually overnight in the time frame of what government can do. They virtually repurposed it overnight for the vet center of Eloy. It's been a tremendous success. Here in Pinal County, we have approximately 40,000 veterans. And here in Maricopa, we have 4,000. They got to have some place to go.
It's 10%.
Sure.
And we're hoping that as we address this issue, that there might be some consideration to allow us to get our people, meaning our people, to do estimates on what it will cost and get in line budgeting and make a presentation before council, city council, within a reasonable period of time. And if that can be done, I believe that the concerns that Councilman Farrell has and Mr. Mayor has, and maybe a few other council members, may be alleviated. Thank you.
Thank you. That answer your question, Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Councilmember Kimball.
Aside from the legality issue of repurposing a building that was condemned, that aside, that worries me, but I think it's a terrible location for a vet center. There's not enough parking, and I don't think I know of a foundation that would pour, 150, 200 grand into a building that's going to be demolished in 3 years or less. I really think we need a long-term solution to this, and that's a bad location, and I think that's something that we should look, going forward, looking at partnering and doing a vet center, but I don't think that that's the right spot.
Yes, Vice Mayor Farrell.
I got to echo Councilmember Kimball's sentiments as well, and I'm all for the veterans, and I'm all for doing something for you all and working with you and trying to find a spot. I just don't know if this is the right spot. It's got too many bugs in it, and it's just, I don't know of any foundation or any grants that are going to give $150,000, $200,000 to refurbish something that's going to get torn down in 5 years either. I agree with the council member. And with that said, Mayor, I'm going to move to approve 10.1 as read on the agenda.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion on the item before we move? Yes, Councilwoman Gussie.
And I'm going to concur, and I'm going to agree with the motion. And just for the reasons that we spoke about, the legalities, we didn't put that in perspective. But at least we got the ball rolling. We have the conversation going. And I believe that our council is aware of what we want in the future. Thanks.
So is there any further discussion on the item? If that's the case, there's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So the motion carries unanimously at this time. Thank you. Thank you for your input. I appreciate it. And that takes us to item 10.2, 10.3, and 10.4. At this time, the meeting is going to change ever so slightly. I'm going to take a point of personal privilege here on behalf of the council as well as the audience members. And that is some of you may be aware that some time ago in May, we had the opportunity to appoint a new council person to fill a vacant spot, and that was Councilmember Franks. Councilmember Franks had to go through an interview process, and at that time, there were a variety of different people who went through the process, and there was a complaint that was raised based on the line of questioning that took place at that time. We have a City of Maricopa ethics code that exists for the purpose of dealing with these types of complaints. And so the idea is that you create a code, and it's difficult creating that type of code because you're dealing with elected officials. No one member of council or even council as a whole has the power to remove an elected official. Only the public does. And so through the form of recall or other measures. And so with that, there begins a new due process. Now, the city of Maricopa has never been through an ethics complaint yet, once this code was established in December of 2013. And so, that being said, this was an entirely new experience, an experience to see how the code would handle the ups and downs and the legalities of different aspects. And so, the due process took place, and over the past 6 months, that has brought us to today. Through the reasons and rationales, the code clearly states that if a complainant has an issue, that before taking it to one of the final steps, one of the things that can be done is that the members that are in the complaint, involved in the complaint, should get together and see if it can't be worked out. And so what took place at this time was a meeting that was held between myself, the Vice Mayor, Councilwoman Gussie, and legal, which is Dennis Fitzgibbons, the city attorney. And in this meeting, we tried to come to some sort of agreement and work out the issues that the complaint was going to allege. We were unsuccessful in that moment, and so that took us to the next step, at which point there was 2 claims filed. One by Vice Mayor Farrell against Councilwoman Gussie for her line of questioning that took place in the May interviews, and the other one that took place was by basically a counterclaim by Councilwoman Gussie against Vice Mayor Farrell for actions that took place inside that meeting with the 4 of us. And so to that end, we moved forward and we hired an outside counsel to come in, as the city manager and the city attorney had been privy to kind of the back and forth that had been taking place, and so we wanted a third set of eyes on this to kind of come in as an independent source, an independent verification, and make sure that interviews done, and was to file a report. The council decided the last council meeting to issue that report. We issued it with only executive privilege withheld, i.e. attorney-client privilege relationship type of thing. But other than that, the report was issued in its completion to the public, and we did so 2 weeks ahead of this meeting so that the news and the general public would have the time to review it. Before we got to that meeting, though, we knew that going into it that each member of both the complainant and the recipient of that complaint has an option to have a hearing. And that hearing is afforded through the code, and that code allows for the hearing to take place either in e-session, much like any other HR dispute would take place, or whether it takes place in a public view. Both Councilmember Farrell and Councilwoman Gussie decided to have those separate hearings done in e-session. And so the council at this time sits as basically a group of 7 judges. Each member of the council has a vote, and according to our code, it takes a supermajority of those present at the time at that meeting where sanctions are discussed, and the moving process forward, which is held at a public hearing or public meeting, like it is today, to take place. And so again, in the name of transparency, we want to make sure that we are doing this in a public forum, in a public fashion, and so this is what has brought us here today. And so what you see before you is item 10.2, 10.3, and 10.4. This is not a court of public opinion per se. It is not a political persuasion. And so therefore there are no speaker cards available for these. The hearings were done 2 weeks ago, and it's for council to decide, based on the facts that were presented in those individual hearings, to decide on each particular case individually and decide whether there was an infraction, the severity of the infraction, and if there is any sanctions that are warranted based on that infraction. And so we will approach this as I've explained, and we'll start with item 10.2. So this is miscellaneous 14-83. The mayor and city council shall discuss and possibly take action on determining whether Councilwoman Gussie violated the code of ethics as alleged in the ethics violation formal complaint dated June 12, 2014, and whether a sanction should be required for any such violation. This item is for discussion and action, and and please note that no public comments will be received during this agenda item. So with that, I will turn it over to council. They can make a motion, they can make a statement, they can explain their vote, but we just need to let you know that, again, council has not waived its executive privilege from the e-session hearing. So to that back and forth that took place in a hearing, in each given hearing for the councilwoman as well as for the vice mayor, that will not be discussed. And so, but each council member is free to express their opinions, their views, and so may or may not choose to do so. With that, I will open it up for potential discussion before we move to a motion, but I want to make sure everybody has a chance and the opportunity to speak. So, Councilwoman Gussie.
Too much time, and not to mention too much of the taxpayers' money has been spent on this. A complaint was filed regarding comments I made at this interview process. My comments were the truth as I saw it. I addressed this man as sir. I didn't cuss at this man. I didn't scream or yell at this man. I didn't get out of my seat as to confront him, nor for dramatic effects. I never slammed anything on the counter. I only spoke the truth as I saw it. I kept my composure while addressing him, and not once did this council interrupt me or state comments to the contrary. This council has never stayed quiet about anything they have disagreed with, even with private personal matters that they themselves have brought up to this council that had nothing to do with the business at hand. You all have read the report. When I say you all, I mean this council, have read the report and the recommendations from Mr. Sims' investigation. I admitted that I could have elaborated on or used different comments and misunderstood our e-session conversation. Mr. Sims found that I had no intent to violate this code. I do apologize for not sugarcoating my comments, for striking the wrong tone, and my blunt remarks during this meeting. If this council deems a violation of the Code of Ethics has occurred, then I will accept this. But I ask that we move on. This council must understand that this will set a precedent. I never violated the Code of Ethics, and I only spoke the truth as I saw it.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gussie. Anyone else wish to comment at this time? Okay. Yes, Councilwoman Chapados.
This has not been an easy process for any of us because of the relationship that we have with each other, with the city, and with you, our constituents. Being one of the strongest proponents for this ethics code, I feel compelled to say something. The purpose of the ethics code was to serve as a guideline for us for our conduct. But the one thing that I think sometimes gets lost in the process is that these 6 people also represent me. I'm also a voter. I'm a resident here, have been for several years. So when something happens, regardless of the reasons why, and they can be as vast as the personalities up here or out there in the audience, I think it's contingent upon us as your elected representatives to hold a higher standard for ourselves and for this body as a whole. I understand that there's passions involved, that there's history involved, that there's strong convictions, that there's each person's personal code of ethics and belief systems, but the bottom line is that we are elected to represent each other and to represent you as the citizens of Maricopa. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve that council did find that a violation had occurred and that the sanction imposed against Councilwoman Gussie be a warning.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the item? We will move to a roll call, but I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to comment, final comments, et cetera, before this gets finalized. Seeing no one, we'll now move to a roll call vote.
Councilmember Kimball?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Farrell?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gussie?
No.
Councilmember Chapados?
Yes.
Councilmember Frank?
Yes.
Mayor Price?
Yes. Okay. That takes us to item 10.3. We will now move to a different complaint. This is miscellaneous 14-84. The mayor and city council should discuss and possibly take action on determining whether Vice Mayor Edward Farrell violated the codes of ethics as alleged in the ethics violation formal complaint dated June 16, 2014, and whether a sanction should be required for any such violation. Discussion and action. Again, this is not for public comment. So, council, I turn it to you. Out of fairness, I think that Councilwoman Gussie made a statement on the last one. Vice Mayor Farrell, do you wish to make a statement of any kind?
Only that the investigation was done. It was proven through the investigation that there was no harm done in that meeting, in that June 16th meeting. And if anybody would like to read the investigation report, it is open to the public.
Mayor?
Okay. Yes, Councilwoman Gussie.
The investigation did state that Mr. Sims stated that he saw no intent on behalf of the vice mayor. I do have to say that during this meeting, this June, can't remember the date, this June meeting, it was preceding the
June 2nd.
June 2nd.
June 2nd.
I sat there while the vice mayor yelled at me, cussed at me, got out of his seat as for the dramatic effects or for whatever reason, and he proceeded to berate me during this meeting. And I see that this is a complete violation of our code of ethics. But then once again, this is up to the entire council.
Okay, thank you. Again, just out of fairness, this is not in theory a debate back and forth, but nonetheless, Vice Mayor, I know that in the past, in public, you have been willing to issue an apology for that. The council, in the hearing, without going into detail, seemed that there was conclusive evidence that was a true statement. And so, did you have anything to say on that?
Repeat the question, Mayor.
Just basically that in the past, in public, you have apologized for any particular actions taken under this complaint. Because I think that lends to, if council moves towards decision on this item, it lends towards the mediation of any accusation, so to speak.
The meeting was with 4 people. It was with myself, the mayor, the councilwoman, and legal counsel. And it's the councilwoman and the councilwoman only that can remember me leaving my chair. But the other 3, through the investigation, admitted that they never saw me leave my chair. I didn't leave my chair. I didn't berate anybody. Did my voice raise? Yes, it did. Did I yell and scream at anybody? No, I didn't. And the investigation proves all that. So if you want the truth, then just read the investigation. It's a public report. Now, during that meeting, I did say a profanity word. It wasn't towards anybody. It wasn't an intent towards anybody. It was a profanity used out of emotion. I apologized to the mayor, to legal counsel, and to the councilwoman when it happened. I apologized again in the hearing that we had 2 weeks ago, once again, to the mayor, to legal counsel, and to the councilwoman when it happens. And I'm prepared to make any public announcement that anybody would like me to make on my apologies for using the profanity that I used. I'm sorry for it. I apologize for it. Anybody that knows me personally knows that I just don't use profanity. And that's just my way of life. Again, it was done on emotion, and once again, I apologize to the mayor, to the councilwoman, and to legal counsel for using that type of language in a meeting.
Council, any other comments, questions, thoughts? If not, we have an item before us. Is there a motion, one way or another?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion. I'd like to move to approve 10.3 that stating that no violation occurred.
Support.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on that item? Seeing none, can I have a roll call, please?
Councilwoman Gussie.
No.
Councilmember Frank.
Yes.
Councilmember Chakados.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Farrell.
Yes.
Councilmember Kimball.
Yes.
Mayor Fraser.
Yes. So that takes us to the final item, based on the justification of item 10.2 and 10.3. Takes us to item 10.4, which is miscellaneous 14-85. The mayor and city council shall discuss and possibly take action on approving a statement regarding resolution of code of ethics complaints. This is for discussion and action.
Move to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and do a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Farrell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Gussie.
Yes.
Councilmember Frank.
Yes.
Councilmember Chakados.
Yes.
Councilmember Kimball.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. That takes us to, before we close the meeting, to the final item of this particular agenda, which is the subset of 14-85. So, anytime the council takes an action, individual council members do not take action on the behalf of the entire council. It takes an action of the council to do so. And so that's what's taken us here today. The Maricopa City Council statement regarding resolution of the Code of Ethics complaints. I'd like to read this to you, please. In June of 2014, the City of Maricopa received 2 complaints filed against Maricopa City Council members alleging violation of the City Code of Ethics. Vice Mayor Edward Farrell filed a Code of Ethics complaint against Councilwoman Julia Gussie for her questioning of Mr. Carl Dietrich during the City Council's special meeting on May 29, 2014, to interview and select a person to fill the open City Council seat. Councilwoman Julia Gussie then filed the Code of Ethics complaint against Vice Mayor Edward Farrell for his conduct during a meeting on June 2nd that involved Councilwoman Gussie, Vice Mayor Farrell, Mayor Christian Price, and the City Attorney Dennis Fitzgibbons. To investigate and make recommendations how the city should proceed, the city engaged attorney William Sims to conduct an independent investigation regarding the allegations contained in the complaints. After completing his investigation, Mr. Sims prepared an ethics investigation report setting forth a summary of his findings and providing his recommendations for the City Council to review and consider. Because these were the first Code of Ethics complaints received by the city, working through these complaints has been a learning process for all of the members of the City Council. After conducting a hearing in executive session as allowed by the Ethics Code, the City Council discussed whether Councilwoman Gussie's comments to Mr. Dietrich during this meeting were inappropriate and violated the Code of Ethics. The City Council further discussed whether a warning was an appropriate sanction for this violation. The members of the Maricopa City Council hereby determine that Councilwoman Gussie's comments violated the Code of Ethics and hereby issue a warning to Councilwoman Gussie as the sanction for this violation. The City Council would also like to apologize to Mr. Carl Dietrich for what occurred during the May 29, 2014 City Council meeting. By going through this process, the City Council recognizes that each of them could have raised a point of order when Mr. Dietrich was being interviewed by Councilwoman Gussie. With regard to the Code of Ethics complaint filed against Vice Mayor Farrell, the Council conducted a hearing in executive session and discussed whether the use of an expletive during the June 2, 2014 internal meeting was an emotional response with no intent to violate the Code of Ethics. The Council further discussed whether Vice Mayor Farrell left his chair when confronting Councilwoman Gussie during this meeting. The City Council hereby determined that Vice Mayor Farrell was not threatening Councilwoman Gussie during this meeting. Although Vice Mayor Farrell sat up in his chair, he did not leave his chair in a threatening manner. The City Council hereby determines that Vice Mayor Farrell's apology issued to those individuals present at such meeting, including Councilwoman Gussie, is an acceptable way to resolve this complaint. As noted above, this has been an educational process for the entire City Council, and we look forward to adhering to the spirit and the letter of the Code of Ethics and moving forward in the best interest of the City of Maricopa. And that concludes our meeting today. Thank you very much for your attendance. Can I have a motion to move to E-session, please?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.